Hi, everybody. I'm a little bit ill, so apologies for my voice, but I'll try and go through this test and do everything I can to support you before your exam. If we're looking at the first question, write down the inequality. So it's an open circle, so it's going to be x is greater than -3. The only time people went wrong with this is that they thought that this arrow meant that they had to include the 5 or something, but that's not part of it. It's just x is greater than -3. For this one, the only mistake people made with this, apart from failing to rearrange this properly, is that they put an equals sign here, but forgot to put it back again. So you just write that as a less than or equal to. Don't write it as an equals and forget to put that back. So we've got 3y less than or equal to 21. So y is less than or equal to 7. Some of you had y equals 7 and lost an easy mark there. I think pretty much everyone scored full marks on this, except when you have a show that question, you basically ignore that. Don't try and make that 35/12 or whatever it was, and then make the left-hand side equals 35/12. You should just pretend that's not there. So 3 times 5 plus 2, 17 thirds minus 4 times 2 plus 3, 11 quarters. Change both to twelfths. 50 times by 4, 34, 68 minus 33 twelfths. That gave us 35 twelfths. And then 12s into 35 go 2 and 11 twelfths. So make sure you just do it in that form, left-hand side, and then try and make it equal the right-hand side. For question 3, most of you got this, but remember you've got the table function on your calculator. So do table function and then just copy this part, because y is just the same as f of x, remember. So start at negative, it'll be start, these are the options. So we put start equals -1, end equals 6, and step equals 1. So once you put that into your calculator, you'll get these. So I think it's -5, 5, 5, and -5. And then we plot this. So some of you just made small mistakes, like you didn't connect all of the points. -2, -1, -5. So you had something like this. And where you lost marks, people were doing this sort of thing, kind of trying to connect the points with multiple lines. Okay, obviously it didn't look like that, but that can't happen in the real thing, guys. And also there were 2 points, let's just say they were there and there, where they were joined with a straight line because they were cross. Because this is a quadratic, you need to make sure that you've got this symmetrical kind of shape like that. Okay, so use a pencil, do not use a pen, and try to get this as one single line. Okay, well, curve. Similar triangles, work out the length of DE. I think everybody got that right. DE 40/16. Excuse me. 40/16 times by 12. Wait, 40/16. Yeah, that was it. 30 there. And then this one, 525 centimeters squared. Change it into meters squared. So some of you tried to do the area scale factor thing, but that's not what this is simply asking you to change centimeters squared into meters squared. So 525 centimeters squared, if you think about it, let's say we have a shape that's 52.5 centimeters times 10 centimeters. Okay, that would give you an area of 525 centimeters squared, right? So if I change both of those into meters, I have 0.525 meters and 10 centimeters was 0.1 meters. Okay, so changing centimeters squared into meters squared, we're dividing by 100 to turn it into meters, but it's meters squared, so we're going to divide by 100 squared. It's up to you how you want to look at that, but this was 0.0525 meters squared. Pretty much everyone did this correctly. One of you got it the wrong way around, but remember you can put this into your calculator and it will give you the opposite value. So x minus 9x plus 4. If you did it on your calculator, you would get x equals 9 and x equals negative 4. So you just reverse those for the brackets. Okay, probability. You had to do 1 minus all of those added together, and I think that was 0.21. But it says work out the probability that Julius takes either strawberry or mint, so those two added together, 0.53. Some of you added those together and still got the wrong answer. So just double check those. Pretty much everyone got this right. Add those up. You get 11. 55 divided by 11 is 5. So each of these is worth 5. So we've got 30 to 15 to 10. And it's asking you how many more games won than lost. So subtract those two to get 20. Find the highest common factor of A and B. So this is where we do our Venn diagrams. A and B. So A, the things that overlapped, we've got 3 squared, 5 cubed, and a 7. A has got an extra 3 squared, an extra 5, and B has an extra 11, like that. Let me just double check that. Sorry, that's not right. This has the 3 squared. Yeah, so 3 squared, 5 to the 4, 7, that's A. And then 3 to the 4, 5 cubed, 7, and 11, that's B. So the HCF is everything in the middle multiplied together. 3 squared times 5 cubed times 7. So 9 times 125 times 7, 7875. And the lowest common multiple is everything in the circles multiplied together. So we've got our HCF times by another 9, 5, and 11. 3, 8, 9, 8, 1, 2, 5. Some of you left these as indices, and unfortunately they took a mark off for that for some strange reason, even though it doesn't say value. So try and learn from that in the exam and put both answers. Okay. Everyone got this correct, I think. 8.4 times 10 to the 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then these two divided. So 6 divided by 8. 6 over 8 is 3/4, which is 0.75. 10 to the 7 divided by 10 to the minus 2. You subtract the powers, but it's a negative. So 7 minus minus 2 is 10 to the 9. 0.75 times 10 to the 9. And we're not allowed to have a decimal unless it's between 1 and 10. So I'd make that 7.5 and then reduce the power by 1 to get that. Do that on the calculator, obviously. Henri buys a yacht for 150,000 and it depreciates. So we're going to multiply by 1 minus the percentage, and the power is the number of years. And then some of you forgot to do the answer to the nearest euro. So you lost a mark. 150,000 times 0.82 cubed is 82705.20. So nearest euro, 82705. Line L is drawn on the grid. Find an equation. So we're looking for y equals mx plus c. To work out the gradient, just take 2 points and work out rise over run. So let's choose that one and there. And this graph is going downwards. Okay, so the graph is, the change in y is -2. and it's going up by 1. So the gradient is -2, and the y-intercept is this point here, -1. Okay? Calculate the length of AB. A couple of ways of doing this, but some of you found out this angle in here and then tried to do sine of that angle, which actually gives you that one there, the wrong one. So we need the side that's common to both triangles when we do this question, which is BD. So sine 32 equals BD, the opposite, over the hypotenuse, which is 3.1. So BD is 3.1 times sine 32. And then if we want AB, the new triangle, then we have in this question, if 42 is our angle, this is the adjacent because it's adjacent to the angle and the right angle there. And we want to know this, which is the hypotenuse. So we're now going to use cosine because it's A and H. So cos 42 is equal to A, which is BD, which we just worked out, over the hypotenuse. So H is equal to BD divided by cos 42. So 3.1 times sine 32, and then divide that by cos 42. 2.21 meters to 3 SF. Some of you forgot to round to correct significant figures there. Cumulative frequency. Okay, this was done pretty well, but a couple of things to point out. You always plot the endpoint of these and make sure you join it up to the origin, which in this case is at 30. So I'm not going to draw that exactly, but you always get kind of S shape like that. And then use your estimate to find the median length. So the total is 100, so we're going to go across at 50, and you're going to read that off, do that with a straight line, and read that off down there. So the median in my case is 55, but I think the actual answer was about 57. Use your graph to find an estimate for the probability that this adult went for a walk for more than 72 minutes. So you're going to read off your graph at 72, do that properly with a ruler. It's actually a bit higher than this. I think they allowed you from about 84 to 86. Wait, sorry. It was, about 84. About 84, 86, something like that. So the number of adults above that is 100 minus 80, let's say 86, which is 14, not 24 as some of you put. And then as a probability, it will be 14 out of 100, or equivalent, so 7 out of 50, or 0.14, or 14%. For question 14, we multiply these out separately. So x to the 12 times 3/4 multiplied by y to the 8 to 3/4. So 12 times 3/4 is x to the 9 and y to the 6. This question causes problems as it usually does. We have to get everything in base 3. Okay, so we've got 3 to the n, 3 to the x, and a 9. So we have to express 9 as a power of 3. So we change that into 3 squared. And then we have that multiplied by, or to the power of y. So that will become 3 to the x over 3 to the 2y, because we multiply the 2 and the y. So 3 to the x divided by 3 to the 2y gives us, because we can subtract these powers, x minus 2y. So we have 3 to the n equals 3 to the x minus 2y. So an expression for n is just simply x minus 2y. Okay? So as soon as you see these weird powers, Try and get them all in the same base. Points on a circle, so circle theorems. Most of you were able to spot this kind of arrowhead one to make that 49, but it says that you need a reason for each stage. So this arrowhead one, says angles at the center are double angles at the circumference. So there's the center, that's double the angle at circumference. So we can't just say things like arrowhead and bow ties and things like that. Also, a second way of working this out, well, I'll finish this one off and then show you another way. When we have a diameter like AC, so that line there, as soon as I join that to another point on the circle, like there, for example, I get a right angle. Okay, so hopefully you can see that this whole thing here is a right angle because we've got the diameter going to another point on the circle. So now that we've got 90 and 49, we just subtract that to get 41 in there. If you wanted another way of doing this, we could work out that angle in there, 180 minus 98. So what does that give us? 82. And then if I just take the shape ODBC, so I'll try and draw it like this. It kind of looks like a bow tie, but that's when it's not touching the center. So, because this is the center of the circle, this is just a sort of rotated version. If I drew it like that, where I've just moved this corner across a little bit, you might see another arrowhead there. So that 82 is going to be double that 41 using the same logic to get the 49 there. Okay, so you need to learn the names of these circle theorems and an explanation for what you're doing. Values of x and y, where y is inversely proportional. So k divided by the square of x. That's how you do inverse proportion. Okay, if it was proportional, it would be y is proportional to k times x squared, but in this case, y is proportional to k over x squared. Okay, so y equals k over x squared. We choose any value of y and x to find out k. So let's do, I don't know, this one. 9 equals k over x squared. So k equals 9 times 4, which is 36. The final formula is y equals 36 over x squared. Given that x is greater than 0, find the value of x when y is 144. So we're going to put 144 equals 36 over x squared and find out the positive value of x, because when you square root, you get two values. So rearrange this. Some of you did this the wrong way around. 36 over 144, which equals a quarter. So if I square root that, I get x equals plus or minus a half. But we have to take the positive value, so x is a half. Okay, I think maybe one or two people got this proof correct. Let's have a look at what we do. So if you have to prove something algebraically, you can't just use numbers. We have to use letters. So the term number, this is usually n, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And all of these numbers you can see are linked to that. So if I choose any term, here is n every time. Is that one there? Okay, that matches the n. And then this number is always 1 bigger than n. So for the first number that we have, it's always going to be n times n plus 1 over 2. That will always be the first term. And then the sum, so we're going to add that to the next one, is n plus 1 multiplied by 1 more than that, n plus 1 plus 1, n plus 2 over 2. Okay, so we get n brackets n plus 1, so that's n squared plus, let's just put brackets around that, n squared plus n over 2, plus, multiply out this bracket, double bracket, n squared plus 2n plus n plus 2 over 2. These have the same common denominator, so I can add them all together, and I get 2n squared plus n plus 2n plus n is 4n, and there's a plus 2 all over 2. Sorry. I could divide everything by 2, n squared plus 2n plus 1, which factorizes to n plus 1 all squared. So you can see here that whatever n is, and when you add them together, you'll get a square number. Okay, whenever you have this question about asking any number that's excluded from the domain, you have to put the denominator equal to 0. The denominator cannot equal 0. The numerator can be 0, but the denominator can't. So we rearrange this to get 4x equals 3, x equals 3 over 4. So 3/4 cannot be in there, because as soon as we put 3/4 in, that will give us a 0 on the denominator. Find f gx. So we're going to do gx first, x minus 5, and we're going to put that into f. So wherever you see an x, you replace it with x minus 5. So I'm going to have x minus 5 over 4. I'm going to replace the x with x minus 5, and then have a negative 3. Okay? You can't cancel x's like this. Some of you try to do that. All we do is just expand this out. 4x minus 20 minus 3. So we get x minus 5 over 4x minus 23. Okay? Express the inverse function f minus 1. So we make y equal, what was it, f, x over 4x minus 3, x over 4x minus 3. We then replace the x with a y and a y with the x. Every instance, not some of you just did sort of like one of the x's. You have to do all of those. And now we're going to cross multiply x brackets 4y minus 3 equals y. Multiply that out, 4xy minus 3x equals y. We want to make y the subject, so we collect the y on the one side. We factor the y, just like we always do, and then we divide by that bracket. So y equals 3x over 4x minus 1. That is our inverse function. Okay, same steps as what we always do, guys. I think just when we replaced the x's with the y's, we only kind of did it for half of them instead. That caused us some problems. Okay, this one here, find an estimate for the gradient of the curve at the point x equals negative 0.5. So that point is here. And we want to know what the gradient is there. Now, at the moment, it's a curve. So we can't predict what the gradient is going to be exactly. We have to draw a tangent. Okay, we draw a tangent to the curve at that point. So maybe something like that. Okay, and then we work out the rise over run. So work out how much it goes across, how much it goes up, and that's an estimate of the gradient. How much does it go up? It goes from about 10 to 20, so it's going up by 10, and it's going across by 1.5. So do 10 divided by 1.5. That gives us 20 over 3, which is about 6.6, something like that. The exam allowed you anything between sort of 5 and 7 for that. So, even if your tangent's a little bit off, you should be okay with that one. Question 19. We're doing sectors, and some of us forgot the formulas. So, reminder, we always do theta over 360 times pi r squared. That gives us the area of the sector. And theta over 360 times 2 pi r gives us the arc length, okay, which would be APB in this case. And this question tripped quite a lot of us up because it wants the perimeter of the shaded segment, which they've never asked before. So the perimeter of the shaded segment is APB and AB. And most of us did the usual, if I do it in pink, that, and this. Okay, so that was not what the question was asking, unfortunately, so we lost some marks there. Let's see what we have to do. Area of the sector is 25 pi over 2. And that is equal to theta over 360 times pi r squared. We can cancel the pi's. 80 over 360 is 2/9. So I can times both sides by 9. And I get 225 divided by 2 is equal to r squared. So r is the square root of 225 over 4. 225 over 4 square rooted is 7.5. So the radius of this is 7.5 there. APB, that arc length, is going to be, using that formula that I mentioned earlier, 80 over 360 times 2 pi, and the r we now know. So APB is 80 over 360 times 2 times 7.5 times pi. 10 pi over 3. So we've now worked out APB, that bit there. We just need to work out the line AB there. To do that, we're going to need to use a bit of trigonometry, I think. Yeah, let's split this in half to make a right-angled triangle there. So we have 7.540 because we've bisected that. And we want to know, let's call that the midpoint MB. So that's M there. So sine 40 is equal to MB over 7.5. So MB is equal to 7.5 sine 40. 7.5 times sine 40 is equal to 4.82. So that gives me MB, but we want double that to get AB. So I'm going to times that by 2. It's 9. So AB is 2 lots of MB because it's a halfway point. It's 9.64. And then I'm going to add the arc length. So I'm going to add 10 pi over 3. 20.1 centimeters to 3 SF. Okay, 3 significant figures. Always check that rounding. Okay. For question 20, we're doing bounds. So when we're dividing, if we want the upper bound and we're dividing, we want the biggest numerator and the smallest denominator. That will give us the biggest value for x. So we want the upper bound for x is going to be 6 times the upper bound of A. So A can go up to 3.465. That'll give us our biggest numerator. And we want the smallest denominator. So we want the smallest value of B minus the biggest value of A. That'll give us our smallest denominator. So smallest B to 1dp is 6.25 minus the biggest A, we've done 3.465. So do that on a calculator. 465 divided by 6.25 minus 3.465. 7.46 to 3 SF. Okay. Two similar bottles, surface area. So when they give you the surface area, then we divide those two. 540 over 240, 27 over 12. What's that? 27 over 12, 9, 2.25. Remember, this is the area scale factor. Okay? We're talking about surface area. We're not talking about the length and comparing the lengths. We're comparing areas. So we need to then square root that, which is the length scale factor is 1.5. And the volume scale factor would be 1.5 cubed. 27 over 8, 3.375. So remember about these scale factors, we'd have to know which one is which. So if B has a volume of 2025, we've got to divide that by 1.5 cubed. 600. So the volume is 2025 over, essentially it's 2.25 square rooted and then cubed, okay, which is 3.375, and that gives us 600. Okay. Completing the square with a negative and a number in front of the x squared. Nasty. Let's take a factor of -2 out. You get x squared minus 6x minus 5 divided by 2. So I've taken a factor of -2 out, and now I can complete the square on this bit here. So I'm going to do x minus 3 all squared. I minus the 3 squared, and I minus 5 over 2. So I get minus 2 x minus 3 squared minus 9 minus 2.5 is minus 11.5. And now I can multiply out these brackets. Up here I'll get minus 2 times minus 11.5 is positive 23 minus 2 brackets x minus 3 squared. Now, I just want to check this on the calculator because I can pretend that equals 0, and I get negative 2x squared, 12x, and 5. If I go down to x, so ignore the first two, the x1 and the x2. This is the x of the completed square. It gives me 3. So that's always the opposite of that. The 3 on my calculator will be the opposite of that. And the y, the 23, is always the constant that's left over. So you should use your calculator to check completed the square. If you've got the white calculator, it will give you the completed square version. Okay. Question 23 is some 3D Pythagoras and trigonometry. So let's have a look at what we have. The base of the pyramid is a square, and then we have 4 triangles to make up this pyramid. So let's work out the surface area of the pyramid. So let's have a look at a triangle ABC. So let's just highlight that there. A, B, C. We're going to work out one of these, and that would be equal to half the base, half the base, half times 10, times the height. Now, sorry, the height of this triangle is not A to O. It's A down to halfway between B and C. Okay, so let's call that, it's not the height of AO, let's just call it X. So the surface area of that is just 5 times X. Now there's 4 of those triangles going around the pyramid, so 4 times the area is going to be 4 times 5x, which is 20x. And then the area of the base is 10 times 10. So we're going to add those two together. So we get 100 plus 20x is the total surface area, which is 360, as it gave us in the question. So rearrange that, 20x equals 260. So x equals 260 over 20, that's 13. So we have a triangle here. Let's call that M, and M to O. Hopefully you can see that triangle there, AOM. So if I just draw that as a normal right angle triangle in 2D, we would have OMA, and we've worked out A to M, that was 13. And O to M, you can hopefully see, if I go halfway across, then that would be 5. So AO squared is equal to 13 squared minus 5 squared, which is 144. So AO is 12. So we've now worked out the distance A to O. Work out the size of the angle between AC and the base BCDE. So we now need that. Let's just do that in red. We need that length there. We've got this here. And we should be able to find out the angle now. So AO is 12. We need OC. So OC squared is equal to 5 squared plus 5 squared. Because we've got 5 here, and we want this here. So that is OC would be root 50. I should put that on the same line there. So root 50 is actually OC, which is 5 root 2. So now we have a triangle AOC, and we need this angle here. Okay, so we've got 12, and OC we just worked out as 5 root 2. Opposite and adjacent, so we're going to use tan theta is equal to the opposite 12 over the adjacent 5 root 2. So I do shift tan of 12 over 5 root 2, and I get 59.5 degrees to 1 dp, or 3SF, whatever, it's 3SF, yeah, 59.5. Okay, final question. The box contains marbles. 4 are red, the rest are yellow. So we don't know how many are yellow, but we do know that when they take 2 yellows, that gives us 0.7. So let's try and draw a probability tree. Let's just go red, red, yellow, yellow, red, yellow. And what we're interested in is yellow and yellow. So probability of yellow then yellow is 0.7. And how can I express that as some sort of equation because I don't know how many yellows we'd have. Let's call the total number x. The number of red is just 4, and yellow would be the total minus 4. Okay, so that's how we're going to start, is by thinking of that in terms of x. So the probability of picking the first yellow, probability of one yellow would be the number of yellows, x minus 4, over the total, like that. And the second yellow, let's do second yellow, is, well, we've got one fewer of the yellows. So x minus 4 minus 1. Okay, we've got one less yellow. And we have one less marble overall. So I'm going to call that x minus 1. So to go first yellow is x minus 4 over x, and the second yellow is x minus 5 over x minus 1. And then we multiply those two together because we're going down the branches. So we're going down that branch and then that branch. So we multiply them together, and that should give us 0.7. So we want to turn that into some sort of algebraic fraction. X minus 4 over x times x minus 5 over x minus 1 is equal to 0.7. Once we've done that, we can multiply both sides. Well, yeah, let's do a setup one here. We'll do x minus 4 times x minus 5 over x brackets x minus 1 equals 0.7. So we can times both sides by x brackets x minus 1. X minus 4 brackets x minus 5 equals 0.7x brackets x minus 1. Now we can start to expand these. Oops. So let's expand the left side. We get x squared minus 5x minus 4x plus 20. And the right side becomes 0.7x squared minus 0.7x. Collect them all together. So take the 0.7x squared and make it a minus. So I get x squared minus 0.7x squared is 0.3x squared. Then I've got minus 9x on the left, plus 0.7x is minus 8.3x. And then we have a plus 20 equals 0. So we go to our calculator. 0.3x squared, negative 8.3, and a 20. We get x equals 25, or x equals 8 over 3. So you might have to do the quadratic formula on this with a equals 0.3. B equals minus 8.3, and C equals 20. And you would write all that out. But when you get your two answers, one of them is a fraction, so we can't have a fraction of a marble. So our total number of marbles is 25. Okay, that's the full paper. Hopefully you can see as you go through that there's quite a lot of marks there to be gained. I think as a group we kind of made some small errors which are easily fixable, okay? Especially like the earlier questions where we were making small mistakes on these. A lot of you made mistakes on your rounding. Yeah, this one was done pretty badly as well as a group. That was done well. That was done well. That was fine. That was bad. Okay, so converting units. And that was fine. Not many people made mistakes on that. And yeah, quite a few people left out the inequality signs there. So as a whole, I'm pretty pleased with how we performed as a group, but there's still quite a lot for us to do over the Christmas holidays. So I'm going to try and put out some more videos out there for specific questions to do with a lot of this stuff. So keep an eye on your emails. I'll try and post on the Google Classroom, and I'll try to do videos based on all of this stuff, which some of us got wrong. Okay. Good luck, guys.